Hey, I'm Myron Meets, and welcome to my presentation 2, where I'm going to talk about my short film project, which is entitled My Heart Grows Colder. This is for Illuminated Bits. Let's go! My filming schedule. So far I've filmed 2 out of my 3 days of filming on location in Phillip in Woden, in my old neighbourhood where I used to live. We managed to film a few hours each day during daylight hours. Like I said, I've ticked off 2 of the 3 days, and on Wednesday the 30th I am scheduled to wrap up filming. Amendments to the scope and nature of my project. I have included an additional green screen scene featuring Yandi, the homeless character, floating in the clouds, supposedly in heaven, talking to me in an apparition. I deleted a portion of the screenplay which was repetitive. I have added some additional props which need to be purchased from the reject shop. They include a candle, some chalk, some pop puree, and a plastic red rose, which is very important for my editing, where I actually isolate the red in the rose and make everything else grey. I decided to omit natural camera audio and source sound effects to coexist with the narration. So any audio that's coming through the video camera will be omitted, and I'll be replacing that with sound effects. It could be wind rustling, it could be traffic noises, and also the narration and the soundtrack will also blend into the soundscape as well. I have decided to integrate some older pre-existing footage into the film. Some of this footage goes back to 2016. Luckily enough, Yandi is still the main character in this filming, which we shot for fun a few years ago, and I will collate this footage into a folder for easy accessibility. I'm just going to bust in here and say that last night I actually added another scene to my screenplay. It's highlighted in red there on the left, and I added another song for my soundtrack to go over the top of it. Now, I have acquired all of my VFX assets off motionarray.com. I actually have an ongoing subscription there, which allows me to download unlimited assets. On the right there, you'll see an optical view binocular overlay, which I'm going to integrate into the scene where I, using binoculars, am searching for Yandi, who has gone missing. My ambition is to start posting daily updates to my Conceptual Notion Facebook page from the beginning of October to generate some interest in my project. As you can see on the right there, that's my first post, which I posted a few days ago, just to introduce my idea. Now, I've also purchased and time-coded the soundtrack of a renowned music producer called Telling Beats, and selected 4 appropriate songs which add some raw emotion to the visuals. You'll see his bio on the left, and on the right I've circled the contract which I selected, which allows me to have unlimited rights to the music to use in my projects. I'll just play a snippet of me opening the folder to show you, and we'll look at a demo. I'll just play this. Song actually comes up at the end. It's quite moody, comes up when the credits roll at the very end. Now, I have typed up the voiceover script, the narration, which works harmoniously with the soundtrack, ultimately determining the timing of the collection of scenes which constitutes the story. I have recorded the voice acting of Yandi, the homeless character, with a condenser mic for good quality, and will synchronize this with the green screen footage I was talking about earlier, and I'll do that in post-production. So let's just have a quick look at my screenplay. It's 3 pages long in a Word document, as you'll see. This is all my narration, which I'll be reading out for the entirety of the movie. And here is the audio for Yandi.
You've got a big heart, mate. Mine's busted. The smoke's got me before I got them. Anyway, these nurses are too quick, mate. Have a dub for me.
I have also recorded 6 editions of my weekly written diary log to keep track of my progress. Now, to provide you with an honest and frank assessment of my progress to date, I admit I have not recorded enough project documentation, and I forgot to take some on-set photos while I was filming. I will have a chance to rectify this when I wrap up filming on Wednesday. I'm going to utilize a screen video recorder app called Filmora Screen to record a video making of, detailing my process of applying effects in real time in Premiere Pro and Adobe After Effects. Also, in the past, in Engineering Reality, I took screenshots for documentation. However, this method proved to be inaccurate and eliminated certain details or steps which get lost or forgotten after production. This new way of recording live records all steps, and I will integrate a voiceover explaining my steps in post-production. Now, with the music soundtrack, I found an interesting quote on masterclass.com. It's very relevant to my project. Music can be particularly useful in creating suspense. For instance, if a character is running towards a corner, not knowing what to expect on the other side, the music can speed up, helping create a tense mood amongst the audience. And this is what I'm aiming for. One particularly notable tempo is the heart rate tempo, where a musical speed that roughly aligns with the beating pulse of the human heart. Although heart rates vary from person to person, most fall within the range of 120 to 130 BPM. So it's a no-brainer really that when you include a film underscore that has a high tempo of say 130 BPM, it's really going to make the audience involved and experience the tenseness of the visuals. So I'll show you my rough sample from my movie. This is towards the end of the film. Just before I do though, I want to say that in this scene I hint at an unrevealed motive to entice and engage the audience into experiencing an interest in the plot, and the soundtrack's high-octane tempo creates suspense and anticipation. The music's fast-paced drives the narrative, and the speedy movie visuals of the car driving and short, sharp cuts synchronize harmoniously with the soundtrack or the narration. But before I lay this old fella to rest, there's just one thing I've got to do. So I jump in my Kia Sorento and take off like the wind. The engines purr, the pistons rev, I'm going at the speed of sound. I'm like a 00 agent fulfilling his final mission. You old Skylark. There's nothing better than hot chips on a cold day. You little legend. So I gathered a lot of my inspiration from the movie Run Lola Run. It features a pumping techno beat. It borrows many of the specifics of rock video forms, such as the reliance on music, the bold use of cinematic craft, quick cuts, dramatic angles, and a moving camera. Time is experienced with extreme urgency in the film. Quick cutting, frenetic action, and the driving techno beat of the music contribute to this incessant pace, which in turn evokes the adrenaline-packed urgency of an interactive video action game. What I mean by video game is the time limit of 20 minutes, which features as a visual effect in the movie. The film embraces the interplay of choice and chance, the essence of video gameplay. So that's what I mean about that. So I'll just quickly play you a quick snippet of Run Lola Run. This I found on YouTube. You'll see at the start some slow-mo footage, some quick cuts, almost like a zoom in there, almost like a character selection on a video game, sort of like with the 360 spin and all that. And I guess this is where I draw my inspiration from. The solid continuity within the dramatic scenes makes it easy to follow the flow and emotional arc of the story in Run Lola Run. Now, it's sort of the same in my movie. I retain simplicity and the straightforward progression of scenes, which adds to the charm of the uncomplicated duo of characters. So you don't have to be Einstein to work out the plot of my movie, pretty much. It's very simple. I also looked up the definition of remediation in the Oxford Dictionary. Basically, remediation is the action of remedying something, in particular of reversing or stopping environmental damage. In Run Lola Run, Lola is driven on a mission, or a video game objective as it would seem, fueled by remediation, trying to stop something or trying to be master of her own destiny, despite trivial motives, which initially was she had to leave the house to get some shampoo. In my movie, Morris, which is played by myself, appears to be driven on a mission of trivial basis as well. I'll leave the house to get some hot chips. It's hardly that crazy, but yeah, you get what I mean. So many interpret Lola as the remediation of the video game within the logic of cinematic form. In other words, reapplying the characteristics of video action games into a passive, mostly realistic context. The obvious limitation, of course, is that the essence of video game experience is interactivity and choice, and unfortunately the film Run Lola Run can only depict interactivity, it cannot overtly present it. So before I conclude, I just want to quickly touch on plants and payoffs. I learnt this technique in screenwriting unit a few years ago, you see. The concept behind using plants and payoffs is to introduce a story point, visual, line of dialogue, character trait, or object early on within the script, usually in a very subtle fashion, and have that element return with the reveal so that it is actually partial to the events to come later on in the story. Now, in the opening scene of My Heart Grows Colder, the cigarette packet with the heart warning on it is stomped on by a pedestrian. This symbolises Yandi's foreboding crushed heart, which will eventuate. The opening shot of the cemetery gates also represents another clue into the unfolding themes and story points relating to morbidity. And that is my presentation. Thank you for listening.